Welcome to Brave with Lisa. This space is designed to inspire, champion, and equip you to bravely walk in that unique rhythm of grace and calling that God has designed just for you. I'm so excited you're joining us today. Welcome to Brave with Lisa. My name's Lisa Bruton, and today I have the very courageous Letitia Shelton. I have heard her speak, and honestly, she just inspires. It makes you want to use your voice in a new way and just step out and be brave. So I'm really excited to have you here. So thank you for coming today, Letitia.
It's great to be with you, Lisa, on this cold, chilly day.
Yeah. Cold for you. I've just been for a lovely walk on the beach.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Rub it in, right?
Exactly.
Letitia, can you share about what you're doing? Because you've got your fingers in many pies, and what you're passionate about.
Yes, well, I head up an organisation called City Women here in Toowoomba, where I've grown up and lived most of my life. And it came out of just a passion to see women across the churches work together to help vulnerable women and girls in our city. So City Women has been an umbrella for a bunch of different ministries, from helping teen girls to prostitutes to pregnant women to refugees to kids in care. It's been a whole range of, just different ministries reaching out, and we've been able to accomplish that as we've worked together across churches in our city. And so that's a big passion of mine. I think a big reason why the gospel is not effective in our cities is because the church is so disunified. In fact, I would say that the biggest sin in our city is the disunity of the church. And the Bible says pretty clearly that if we work together, as if we love one another, the world will know that he is one. So if the world isn't knowing that there's a God, maybe they're not seeing a church that is one and working strategically and coordinated together. So that's just a brief overview, but may God help us.
Yeah, and I have to agree with that. And the unity of churches is, when it's unified, is so powerful. So can you share about how City Women began, and even how you were able to draw in people from different churches and create that unity?
Yes, well, I mean, kind of backing up, before we began in 2001, City Women, but before that, pastors had been praying together for quite, probably for 20 or so years. Had been praying together. Anywhere between 50 to 70 pastors or leaders were praying weekly together in our city. So when I came along, I'd come back from Bible college in America, and I started as a pastor in my own church, but realised that we were here to pastor a city. So we were challenged, a group of women were challenged by our mayor, who was around back then, to get outside the four walls of our church and do something for particularly the young people of our city. And so a group of us from different churches thought, well, let's run camps for girls. Well, let's run a camp. We had no idea what we were stepping into. And so we worked with our chaplains and took away 20 girls to the Bunya Mountains. And it was just during that weekend of camp, just hearing the stories of abuse and suicide and the self-harming. And I realised that on one side of our city, we have all the pain and brokenness, and on the other side, we will have the churches busy doing church work, but we weren't really meeting each other. So that was kind of an impetus to really see how could we mobilise the church more into the pain of our city.
Wow. So you really started to see the need, and that there needed to be something that bridges the gap. So can you speak about, I guess, how did you find strategies to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really quite simple. We make Christianity and mission so complex, but it was really, well, what is the need? So for instance, 11 years ago, our state government decided that Toowoomba needed a brothel, which was, so nice of them. And so, okay, that's a need. It's a group of women. Obviously, we did a lot to lobby the government and petitions and rallies, but it's still open. So, okay, there's women with real stories in there who need love and friendship. So it was really just a matter of finding out who in our city had a passion to reach these prostitutes. And I found that lady. Actually, she found me. And we started talking and, okay, well, let's start a ministry that just knocks on the brothel door and befriends them. It really was that easy. We'd been doing it for about 5 years until we realised there was actually an organisation in Australia that trains you.
Wow.
Rahab comes out of Adelaide, and they'd been running, but we didn't know about them, and we just started. And the training was helpful, but what we did before that was so beneficial too. So yeah, then we realised that Toowoomba had no pregnancy support centre, and 70% of women have abortions because they don't have support. And so again, we need the church to be on the front edge offering support. So again, it was who's passionate about that, and we found that woman, and because of our network of women across the churches, we could find her a team, and they're going great guns today. So it's just what is the need and who has the passion for it, and then how do we get around that and resource it and make it happen.
And it's as simple as that, isn't it? And I've found too, when God places something on our hearts, because he draws our attention to things, right? It's a matter of going, okay, God, how do I start? What's the next step? And it sounds like it was as simple as, all right, I've identified the need. Now, who's for this role, God? Because you can't do everything, right?
No, you can't, and no one church can either. And I think that's why we see such a limit in ministries, because you don't have all the resources in one church. It's body. It's only one little part of the body. So when the church is dismembered and parts of the body aren't working together, yeah, we're not effective.
Now, Letitia, I am aware that you would have had some uncomfortable conversations bringing what's in the dark into the light. Or what, I guess my question is, was it hard bringing it to the church with the things that were going on in the community, or did they accept it and run with it quite well?
Yeah, no, it wasn't hard for me. I don't mind having had conversations. Very happy to talk about what no one else wants to talk about. I mean, initially with City Women, we just began to rally the women. We would do a women's breakfast and get 100 or 200 women, and at every breakfast we would have stories from women in our community. We'd share statistics, data, and women rally around that really easily. We have huge hearts of compassion, not going to argue or you know, not be impressed, but we will hear a story and respond and sign up. So yeah, look, I mean, the hardest thing probably is helping the church understand that this is our role, you know, and but the women are pretty easy.
That's amazing. I love how, yeah, and you're right. Women are compassionate, and I often hear, because I run retreats, you know, women saying, I want to do something, but I don't know how to get involved. I don't, because I want to come along someone or so the fact that you're providing that platform and providing statistics and also equipping them to come on board is incredible.
Yeah, no, it is. Most people aren't self-starters and they don't know if you can make it easier. However, I mean, obviously City Women don't run every organisation in town. In fact, since we've started, so much else has sprung forth, from government agencies to other NGOs, and I encourage Christians go and help in those as well. It doesn't have to be a Christian-run organisation. Go and be light there and help them. So it's just a matter of stepping out.
Yeah, that is so true. Do you have some favourite stories or things that have come out from City Women?
Yeah, look, that's a hard one. I mean, so much has happened in areas across our city. I mean, for me, it really has been seeing the churches work together, seeing women find each other. Even yesterday morning, we had a breakfast with about 40 Christian leaders, female Christian leaders in our city, and two of the main leaders shared their journey of friendship in different churches and how they've worked through jealousy and competition. And I just love that, because it's breaking down just so much crap that seems to get involved in churches. So, you know, that's only something small, but it's huge. The more we can work against jealousies and see each other as one team, and that, yeah, and I don't think women care as much about different denominations, and we build the friendships. But look, I mean, just we've had so many young women come to know Jesus over the years. We've got babies that are alive because we run a pregnancy support centre and the woman chose not to have an abortion. You know, our brothel just lets us come in and, you know, I did a forum in April, actually. I had women from all over Australia come to Toowoomba, and I took them all up to our strip club for an excursion. And the manager, yes, come in, no, that's fine. And here, you know, feel free to interview this sex worker, and just the favour that we've been given.
That's amazing.
Is beautiful. So look, it's been a long journey, and things have changed a lot over the years too. But we just continue to move on with God. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
And you speak still with passion, and you've been running it for almost what?
Yeah, well, we started in 2001. Yeah, so a long time.
Yeah, that's a long time, 20 odd years. So you're speaking with passion. How do you maintain or continue to have passion for the things that God's placed on your heart, and, you know, to continue to speak?
Yeah, I guess it's something God's put on my life, and it's deep in my heart. You know, I see a lot of people start things and it lasts about 2 seconds, because it's hard.
Yeah.
And so first of all, you've got to know, is this God or not? And then that's going to determine if you start or stop. And so to continue over a long haul is hard work. But the thing for me, even though now I spend a lot of time traveling and speaking and doing podcasts, this weekend I'll be at our strip club. Like, I never want to become distant from the need.
Yes.
Never want to not stop meeting up with teenage girls for coffee and just being in their lives and being part of being in the mess as well. I never want to, I guess, become so big that I don't have time for them, because they're the first people that we're here for. So that's where I find my passion, talking and listening to their stories and their needs, and realizing we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
A very long way to go.
So really, I guess, keeping in touch with the grassroots, with the whole reason why you started.
Yeah, and I always say Jesus is near the brokenhearted. You know, that's a Bible verse, and I think because we spend too much time in the church, actually, and running from conferences, and I mean, I find more of Jesus. I've just come back from Fiji, where spent a lot of time with the sex workers on the street there, and encountering Jesus with them and their story and their pain, and yet you leave tired but full. So I think we become stale when we just go from Bible study to prayer meeting to church to women's group. I mean,
it's putting faith into practice too, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we're called for good works. We're called to be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord that He's called us to. And that's, you know, for everyone. That might be your workplace or your street. We're not all necessarily called to the brothels, but wherever God has you, that's your mission field. You know, we don't run back to church to do the spiritual work.
Yeah, that's so true. And so you just mentioned that you've been in Fiji. I know you've how did that all start? Because you've been there a number of times now, haven't you?
Yeah, I used to live there. Our family lived there at 15. Only for 1 year. They put me in an all-girls Fijian school. So I was the only white face with 500 beautiful dark-skinned women. And it was, I mean, that was just so impacting for me that 1 year, and built great friendships. And in 2019, some of my classmates invited me back to Fiji because they'd seen what I was doing now and my heart for women. And I just realized women, Pacific Islands have 2 in 3 women are abused. Worldwide statistics are 1 in 3 women, but the Pacific Islands, it's 2 in 3 women. And then they have the highest church attendance rates as well. So that really gets under my skin. So I've re-engaged, and just the doors have opened up, and I just feel like the fact that I live there and now pastor gives me a fair bit of authority to speak and disrupt. So they've appreciated having an outside person, because you're disrupting not only the abuse and the porn, but it's the culture.
Yeah.
It's even the false teaching in church. So I just feel like that's part of where God wants me in this season to, help shake things up a bit.
Absolutely. And I can imagine there'd be this holy anger, or is that what you would call it, that would also fuel the passion to speak truth into the churches in Fiji and other places like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a holy anger with a deep compassion and love for the nation,
Yeah.
that kind of run hand in hand. But yeah, wherever there's silence around evil, and there's not just a silence over there, there's a covering up, because the shame is huge. Even though every family has abuse and whatever, they cover it up, and it's just crazy. So yeah, you want to, I tell them, you want to disrupt the shame, because as our issues come to light, that allows the redemption of Jesus. But as long as we keep it all hidden, Jesus doesn't get to redeem your family or your situation. So it's probably, it's weird that in a country that the victims are shamed, not the perpetrators. So yeah. So anyway, we'll just keep plugging away there too. And they rate 4th highest in the world for Googling porn.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and the porn and the abuse go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But I think churches don't think it's spiritual work to confront these issues, as I think in Australia too. I mean, it's hard trying to get churches on board to talk about these things, but we're a little bit more open and down the track than they are.
I agree. I definitely agree. So you're in Fiji, you're going and you're speaking and you're seeing these atrocities, really, and bringing it to light. What happens when you do that?
Yes, I'm finding it's really good now. God's really put me in touch with some key leaders. There are some good young kind of pastors who really want to disrupt. So I'm really working with them. Hopefully they can continue. Before I left, we did a day for church leaders. About 80 turned up, just to really help them understand the issues and what they can do. But there's a huge amount of training that needs to go on. Most women, and I was just chatting to one before I got on here, on Facebook. She's got 5 children and trying to escape her abusive husband in a village. And she said she would never tell her church. Knows everyone, unfortunately. But the church, and I hear this too often, will say, just go home and forgive him. You've got to protect your marriage. What have you done wrong that he's abusing you? And I hear this in Australia as well. So the church, unfortunately, gives ourselves a bad name when it comes to being trained and addressing these issues properly. It's an embarrassment. And I did a similar breakfast here in my own city with pastors, just to help them understand and how we have got to get trained. It's just such a huge issue, and we spiritualize everything, and it's so embarrassing. And yes, we believe that marriage is so important, but not at the expense of, being abused and harmed. I mean, people die over this. But we don't say how evil abuse is. We talk about how important marriage and forgiveness is, and don't call out the abuse. So it's just a big can of worms.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm only just starting to understand that as well. That's becoming more evident, just seeing how churches in general have handled abuse in the church as well, by pastors and whatnot, and how there's a lot of forgiveness towards the men, and the women are left uncared for.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't handle it well. We don't know the resources in our own city and where to send them, and how to don't do couples counselling. There's just simple little tips that go a long way in helping someone, and understanding why a woman doesn't leave straight away, or might never leave. I mean, you know, if you've got children, you don't want to leave you and send your kids back to an abusive husband without you being present. So there's so many factors, aren't there?
Yeah. And I think too, I've met women who don't want to leave because they think, like you said, you know, God, you know, is full of marriage. But I tend to say to them, but God, like, is for safety and for your heart. And
Totally.
that's a loving Father.
Yeah. And look, I think he's already broken the covenant. I mean, it's a covenant to honor and respect and love and protect. And so, and most of perpetrators aren't going to change unless you make some drastic move. And I think a separation period is really helpful in shaking him up or her. I mean, women are abusers too, but predominantly men. And I think until there's some justice and some real change, nothing, very few can you just stay and pray that he'll change. I very rarely hear that happening.
Now, I suspect some people who are listening into this are getting stirred and perhaps going, I think this is me, or where would you direct them? Like you said, we don't really know our resources and what's available.
Are you around, is this around the abuse issue or just wanting to?
Yeah, around the abuse issue.
Yes. Look, I've just been reading some really good books that have helped me understand. There's a great book called Black and White Bible, Black and Blue Wife.
Wow.
It's a shocking book. Another book that I think his name is Kevin Giles. It's an Australian book, just came out last year. I can't remember it either. But look, I think just going to your local domestic violence centre, whether they're Christian or not, and just how can I help? How can I serve you? Our organisation just provides food packs for them regularly. And that's just a way that we try and get alongside them. But just going and talking to them, inviting your domestic violence centre to a woman's event to hear what are the issues is really important as well.
Yeah, they're great tips.
That's where I would start, probably with professionals, helping really understand the problem and what you can do. But I mean, as our domestic violence manager said at our breakfast here in Toowoomba, she said, if you think you have no abuse in your church, it's because you're not talking about it. And there will be people being abused and they just don't come forward because we don't talk about it and they don't feel safe and that we would understand. So,
yeah, they're really good points. Okay, I've got one last question for you. So for those people who have a burning message on their heart, what are some tips to starting?
I have one tip, just do it.
Just do it. I love that.
Look, there's never a right time to start. We'll never feel equipped or qualified. God is in the unknown. And so it's amazing as I've stepped out, just not being able to see or know what's going to happen, how God has met me out there when you're afraid. So you do it afraid and you just step out. I mean, if it's a big issue, like I've always encouraged people when they come to me, well, form a team, you know. When we started the Pregnancy Support Centre, the first thing is form a team. And if you can't get a team together, then maybe it's not God at this moment, or maybe you're not the right person. But I've found that, 90% of women who are really serious about it, they can rally a team and get going. So, I think church has created a whole generations of women that are just nice. Church has made us nice. It's kept us silent, quiet, occupied. And as you might know, I've written a whole series of books called Disruptive Women because I've been studying the women of the Bible and they're not sitting around having cups of teas or even prayer meetings. Again, I think we hide behind the excuse of, I'll just pray about it. And I believe in prayer and I pray a lot, but it's prayer in action. Without action becomes religious garbage, really. And so, the excuses and things we hide behind that sound so spiritual and so nice when God has already told us to go and do and be and take risk and have courage. And that's what I love about the women of the Bible. I mean, they were changing families, cities, nations. So just go for it.
Oh, do you have a favorite disruptive woman?
Oh, look, I love JL. Um, I love Rizpah. There's so many I love. I love any woman that looks at injustice and does what it takes to drive that tent peg through the enemy's head.
Yes. Oh, Letitia, how can people find you or read, find your books or even just get involved with what you're doing?
Yeah, look, my books are on our City Women website, citywomen.com.au. You can find me on Facebook. But unless you live in Toowoomba, I don't want you to get involved with me. You need to get involved in your own city.
That's great.
And so find a group of women from different churches who are willing to maybe look at a particular issue and what you can do together. And don't just meet for a meeting's sake, but meet and have action and purpose.
Yeah, that's so good. And you're about to do a bike ride?
Yes, yeah, I am. Well, last year I set out to cycle my bike from Darwin to Broome, 2,500 Ks, to raise money to get a book into homes of Toowoomba. It's a book called How to Speak to Your Kids About Pornography. And so I got halfway through the ride last year before COVID stopped it. But we've been able to raise enough money and deliver 16,000 of these books onto doorsteps of Toowoomba. And I want to go back and love to raise another 95,000, but we'll see how we go. But it'll be nice to get back up to the warmth.
Absolutely. And that's also a way that people can support you as well, right?
Yep, they can. And they'll see that on my Facebook page if they do want to support. But again, work out what you can do in your own city. I think we're responsible for our own cities. And yeah, I'd love to see similar stuff happen in every city. The porn issue is ginormous.
It really is. Well, thank you for just sharing with us, giving us some very practical tools of just do it and gathering a team. And yeah, I know that the way you speak, it really kind of enables and inspires. So thank you. Thank you for what you're doing and that you really are paving a way for those things that have been in the dark and bringing light into it. So thank you for your bravery.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks, Lisa.
It's been wonderful. Thank you very much. Bye. Thanks for joining me on Brave with Lisa. I hope that it has inspired or impacted you in a small or large way. Feel free to comment, to subscribe, and share with some friends. And please join us next week on another conversation we will have here on this channel on Brave with Lisa.